All right, let's talk about the Eastern Conference contenders and one question I have for each one of them. I have 4 teams today, and before I move any further, I guess I should do a call to action for the first time in forever, but hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you want more of these videos and analysis, reaction to NBA news, breaking down NBA players, teams, making basketball videos about whatever comes to my head. I've done a few anime and cartoon videos in the past related to basketball. I'm going to get back to that soon. So hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Let's do one big question, or not even question, just a thought on each Eastern Conference contender. I guess the fourth one is kind of a pseudo honorable mention, pending on what they do at the trade deadline. You probably already imagine which team I'm talking about, but let's go to the first team. The Boston Celtics. The Celtics have probably the best starting 5 in the NBA. Their net rating is ridiculous. The starting 5 of Drew Holiday, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and Kristaps Porzingis is a plus 19.1 with a 124.2 offensive rating, 105 defensive rating. My big question for the Celtics, I'm not so worried about their bench as others are because the rotation shortened in the playoffs, although I'm not going to sit here and say benches don't matter, but when you have a top 6 like the Celtics do in their rotation, I'm not worried about the bench. My one question for the Celtics is how often they're going to attack the rim. Now, I'm not the first person to say this or have this question. I know Zach Lowe has talked about it on his podcast a bajillion times. Others have talked about it a bajillion times, but it is the rim. And whenever I watch Celtics games, there's a clear difference when they are basically shooting a ton of threes with no movement, or early shot clock threes, early transition threes. And there's a difference between that and when they get into the paint and it's more deliberate, kick it out, and the ball pings around the perimeter. I want to see how they balance that out throughout the year. Now, they are a great team and probably the favorite to come out of the East, even though I had the Bucks being in the finals preseason. But the rim pressure is going to be the question for the Celtics all year long. How often is Jason Tatum getting to the rim first as opposed to pulling up a bunch of times from 3? And his pull-up jump shooting from 3 has just been horrendous this year. Drew Holiday, how often is he getting to the rim as opposed to some of his usual Drew Holiday dumb shot selection? Jaylen Brown, Derek White, etc. And are you kicking it out, moving the ball? Because when the Celtics do that, their offense looks unstoppable and sustainable at that. And that's probably why sometimes their crunch time offense doesn't look as good, because they know they can get the 3 anytime they want, and they end up taking some bad ones. So that will be my question for them moving forward this season. Number 2, I have the Milwaukee Bucks, and I know I talked about the Bucks in a video a few weeks ago about their improved defense since early November when they returned to Brook Lopez in a heavy drop in that November 3rd Knicks game. But the last few weeks, their defense has kind of gotten back to being not so good. They lost twice to the Pacers, and I'm not so sure how much of that I want to take into the playoffs in case, both of these teams face off. But it's still concerning when the last 2 weeks your defense has ranked near the bottom of the league once again. And I just wonder how much that's going to fluctuate throughout the year. How much are Andre Jackson and Marshawn Beauchamp going to develop and fast-track their development throughout the year, because they can definitely use that athleticism and wing size on the perimeter. So that will be interesting to track as the year goes on. Then we go to the Miami Heat, who I've just grandfathered into the contender tier no matter where they finish in the standings or what their record is. They have been playing with guys out once again, and yet somehow they are still winning games the Miami Heat way. And I was going to lean towards their offense because I do think sometimes their offense can get a little sloggy, but my question is more towards Bam Adebayo, and it's not even a question about Bam. He's one of the best centers in basketball. He is a perennial Defensive Player of the Year candidate. This is more of an interesting thing I want to track this year. Bam's newfound aggression on offense and his newfound aggression as a scorer, I want to see how that transfers to the playoffs, because I think the Heat are going to be in every playoff game because of their defense, because they have Jimmy Butler, because they have Eric Spoelstra, and they have the necessary ancillary pieces to surround Spoelstra, Bam, and Jimmy. But I can't wait, and I want to see how this newfound aggression looks like in the playoffs. Basically, can he do more? Because the Heat are asking a lot of him. I know he's been injured a little bit this year and is probably in danger of that 65 game mark that's been put in place this year. But I really want to see what this looks like in the playoffs, because I think it's fun. I think the Heat need it. And throughout the season, if you're looking to find another solution to ungum your offense, which right now the Heat's offensive rating is 17th per cleaning the glass, and it's been 26th the last 2 weeks. Bam and his aggression as a scorer, and of course he's always going to be that DHO hub as Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson run off of him and stuff. That is going to be a nice solution to have come playoff time. And he's shown he can be a scorer, obviously. He was great in the finals. He was great in the playoff run last year. And it seems like he's taken his offensive game to another level this year. And if he takes that into the playoffs, the Heat will have an easier time on the offensive end of the court. And then number 4, and I kind of have them in the pseudo contender category just because I think this team is incomplete right now. The Philadelphia 76ers, and the question is, what type of trade do they make? Because there are some nights, even though the Sixers have a top 5 defense, there are some nights where the lack of a true point of attack defender or the best wing defender on the best wing perimeter player on the other team is lacking, and it really shows, and it kind of hurts the team. Then there are nights like against the New York Knicks yesterday, where you kind of just need a different solution on offense other than the Maxey Embiid two-man game. Nick Batum is past his prime. You can't really run offense through him that much anymore. Marcus Morris, if his shot isn't falling, he's pretty much dead on arrival. It's just a lot of Maxey Embiid two-man game and everything flowing out of that, and I do think too much of that can be a problem, especially when you're relying on Tobias Harris to be your third guy. And look, we knew this roster was kind of incomplete. They need another ball handler whenever Maxey goes to the bench. Patrick Beverley is just too inconsistent of a solution for that. Do they do a trade where they just get extra depth and role players like another ball handler like Tyus Jones and just some other ancillary pieces? Do they go for a Zach LaVine to get that third star type of firepower whenever Maxey and Embiid go to the bench, or to supplement Maxey whenever Embiid goes to the bench? Do they go for Alex Caruso, like more role players? Do they go for DeJounte Murray or Bogdan Bogdanovic to kind of get a mix of both, even though I think DeJounte Murray is quite frankly overrated on the defensive end of the court? It's going to be interesting to see what type of trade Daryl Morey makes. It's basically a question of, do you go with more defense or do you go with another shot creator, more ball handling? There's plenty of routes to go. All I know is a trade is going to happen. I think the more than max cap space thing over the summer is kind of a threat more than the actual plan A. Does Daryl Morey decide to use the cap space now by doing something at the trade deadline, which I think is the more likely option, because you can ask Dallas Mavericks fans exactly how the cap space, max cap space summer plan exactly works out, right? So it really depends on what type of trade the Sixers make, but the Sixers have the reigning MVP. He has taken his game to another level. Maxey has proven that he can be that second co-star, though I do have questions on if he is really, really ready for that at 23 years old. And Maxey's been fantastic this year, but there is a point to be made that whenever Joel Embiid doesn't play, Tyrese Maxey's numbers aren't necessarily the same. I've brought this up before, but there are some days where I think we might be asking a little too much out of Maxey to be the second guy on a title team this year, and I think he'll be that down the road, but I'm talking about this year. It'll be interesting to see what type of trade Daryl Morey makes, but a move does need to happen, and every day I flip-flop back and forth. Do I want more offense? Do I want more defense? Do I want depth and role players? Do I want a semi-star and a role player, something like that. I don't know yet. All I know is a trade needs to happen soon.